Mimi, are you pregnant? Julian asked. You're probably wondering who these people are and how we even got to this moment. So allow me to explain. It all started a long time ago. Julian and I had been rivals since childhood. Our enmity was built on years of teasing, relentless competition, and stubborn pride. We challenged each other in everything: grades, popularity, achievements, anything that could be turned into a contest. Years later, fate played a cruel joke on us. We ended up working under the same roof at M&J Software Development. I was a striking young woman, confident, sharp, with a presence that turned heads. And no, I'm not bragging, okay? Maybe a little. Julian, on the other hand, was a self-centered rich kid who only cared about himself. Alright, I'm kidding. Mostly. He was a handsome Korean man with chiseled features and carefully styled hair, the kind that made him look like he belonged on a magazine cover. Unfortunately for me, he was also a perfect combination of the two things I hated most: arrogance and flirtation. One morning, our boss called us into his office with an unusual assignment. We have a high-profile client, Mr. Tomas said. He frequents at a private nightclub. I want you two to meet him there and convince him to invest in our new software. Then he looked directly at me. Do you think you can do it? I don't know, sir, I replied honestly. Julian leaned back in his chair, a smug smile spreading across his face. But of course, sir. I'd love to, he said smoothly. And I understand if Mimi can't. Not everyone was born to fit into certain places. I frowned. You know what, sir? I can do it. Mr. Tomas smiled. That's great. Pause. I know what you're thinking, that I was being childish. And maybe I was. But look at that stupid smirk on his face. I wasn't about to let Julian win. No way in hell. The club was dimly lit, the bass of the music vibrating through the floor and straight into my bones. The air smelled of alcohol, smoke, and secrets. The client, a charismatic but eccentric man, laughed loudly as he raised his glass. Come on, Mimi, Julian, he slurred. One drink won't hurt. I shot Julian a look of disgust. We're not here to get drunk, I whispered. Julian smirked. Of course, Mr. Ray. Drink to your fill. Of course, not everyone can hold their drinks. That was when I made a very bad decision. I grabbed a large glass of alcohol and downed it in one shot. Instantly, this became a competition about who could keep Mr. Ray most entertained. Before you ask, yes. I regretted it almost immediately. But let's continue. We drank. We danced. Then we drank some more and danced again. By the end of the night, our glasses had been refilled so many times that remembering our own names felt like a challenge. Laughter came easier. Boundaries blurred. And somehow, our lifelong rivalry melted into something neither of us expected. One thing led to another. And we ended up in each other's arms, discovering a fiery chemistry neither of us had ever anticipated. Morning came too quickly. Weak sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the room. My head throbbed from the alcohol. I shifted slightly and froze. Julian, half asleep, messy-haired, sprawled across the bed with an arm draped possessively over my waist. My eyes widened. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. This cannot be happening. This had to be a dream. A bad one. I just needed to wake up. I shut my eyes and opened them hoping to disappear from this place, but I was still here, which meant this was not a dream. Slowly but carefully, tried to inch away. Then the bed creaked. Julian stirred. One eye fluttered open. Mimi? His voice was groggy, but there was that teasing lilt, the one I hated. I froze. Julian, I whispered, my voice barely more than a squeak. He sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair as he took in the tangled sheets, the messy room, and me. Well, he said slowly, this is awkward. How did we get here? I demanded. That was the real mystery. Because the Mimi I knew would rather die than give in to Julian or anyone else, for that matter. I snapped, clutching the blanket to my chest as if indignation alone could erase what had happened. Julian chuckled softly. I don't know. But I do know we definitely shouldn't have drunk that much. It was you. You turned this into a contest, I muttered. He leaned back, grinning. Come down, Mimi, you are gonna give yourself a heart attack. I groaned. Just let me leave before anyone sees us. I need to think. Julian laughed, a genuine sound that made my chest tighten despite myself. Fine. But next time, try not to take advantage of me. I frowned, throwing a pillow at him, and stormed out. After this, one thing was certain. Going back to work at MNJ was going to be hilariously awkward. The next day, I went to work just like any other day, at least I pretended it was. I tried as much as possible to avoid Julian at all costs. Different hallways, different timings, even pretending to be busy whenever I sensed his presence. Unfortunately, avoidance only worked until Mr. Tomas called for a staff meeting. I deliberately chose the farthest chair from Julian, keeping my eyes forward and my expression neutral. Mr. Tomas cleared his throat. "So Mimi," he asked, "how did your meeting with Mr. Ray go?" I straightened. "Great," I replied calmly. "We're hoping to finalize the deal by this weekend." Satisfied murmurs filled the room. As I sat back down, the colleague seated beside me leaned closer, squinting slightly. "Mimi, what's that mark on your neck?" "It looks like an insect bite," I cut in quickly. "That's all it is." Pause. What was I supposed to say? That I got drunk and ended up sleeping with my worst enemy? Yeah, that was not an option. At the back of the room, Julian leaned against his chair with a lazy smirk, clearly enjoying my discomfort. After the meeting ended, I hurried toward my desk, only to find Julian standing beside it. "An insect bite?" he asked quietly. I avoided his gaze. "Yes, that's all it was." Julian's lips curved slightly. "Meet me in the server room." Before I could protest or even process his words, he turned and walked away. I had no choice but to follow. The moment I stepped into the server room, Julian closed the door behind me and locked it. My heart also jumped out of my chest. "Why did you lock the door?" I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. In one swift movement, he pushed me gently but firmly against the door, pinning my wrists above my head. "You said it was an insect bite," he murmured. "Is that really all it was to you?" I turned and looked away. "Yes, that's all it was." "Was it really?" he asked again, his voice lower now. Before I could answer, he kissed me. I gasped, then bit his lip instinctively. He pulled back slightly, but didn't let go of my hands. "Let me go, Julian," I whispered. "What do you think you're doing?" Instead of answering, he kissed me again, deeper this time, harder. I resisted as long as I could, but in the end my body betrayed me. I kissed him back. When it finally ended, Julian released me without a word and walked out, leaving me alone in the humming silence of the server room. Want to know what I was thinking after that kiss? It was quite the kiss. But don't tell Julian I said that. I slowly touched my lips, confused and frustrated. Why couldn't I stop myself from responding to him? From wanting him when I knew I shouldn't? The days that followed were deceptively simple. I did everything humanly possible to avoid Julian. The universe refused to cooperate. Meetings overlapped. Paths crossed. Silence spoke louder than words. But I held on to one belief with stubborn determination. Nothing would stop me from getting away from Julian. Or so I thought. One morning, and by one morning I mean the morning all my effort went to hell, I woke up with a wave of nausea so strong it sent me running to the bathroom. The sickness was worse than anything I had ever felt before. At the clinic, everything felt routine. Blood tests, scans, waiting. Until the doctor called me into a private room, her expression suddenly serious. "Mimi, congratulations," she said gently, holding out a medical form. "You're pregnant." My mouth fell open. Pregnant? My mind spun wildly. My thoughts raced straight to one person. Julian. The blurred night. The drinks. The heat of the club. Panic hit me first, sharp and overwhelming, followed by a rush of emotions I couldn't even begin to untangle. I had been careful my whole life. Careful with my choices. Careful with my everything. And yet here I was, weeks later. Pregnant. And worse, pregnant with his child. The universe was truly punishing me for something I had done maybe in my past life. Just as the shock began to settle, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Mom, don't forget family dinner tonight. Julian and Chris will be there." Of course they would be. Pause. You're probably wondering why my mom even needed to tell me this. Growing up, there were two boys who were always part of my life. Julian, as you already know, is a jerk who lives only to annoy me. And then there is Chris, the charming, caring, gentle prince I had been secretly crushing on for years. But now that I think about it, now I was pregnant with Julian's child, which meant my chances with Chris had dropped to less than zero. Play. Time moved faster than I realized. Before I knew it, I was sitting at the dinner table, with Julian on one side and Chris on the other. My head was in a constant state of chaos. Every question my parents asked, I deflected with carefully chosen lies. Julian noticed immediately. I could feel his eyes on me, watchful, suspicious. But he said nothing. Chris smiled warmly at me. So, Mimi, he asked, how's work? Is Julian looking after you like he promised? If looking after me meant constantly making my life miserable, then yes, he was doing a fantastic job. At least, that's what I wanted to say. Instead, I smiled politely. I know he's trying his best. Chris nodded, satisfied. Soon, the food arrived. All my favorite dishes. Every single one present on one table. I picked up my chopsticks, ready to eat, then froze. I was pregnant. What if I took one bite and suddenly felt sick? What if I threw up right there at the table? That would reveal everything I had been desperately trying to hide. Slowly, I set my chopsticks down, forcing a weak smile. My mother noticed immediately. Mimi, are you all right? She asked. You haven't touched your food at all. I'm just feeling a little sick all of a sudden, I replied softly. Oh dear, she said with concern. Do you want to go home? Then she turned to Chris. Chris, would you mind taking her? My heart skipped. Julian's gaze sharpened. Of course I would love to, Chris replied. Chris grabbed his keys without hesitation. He said gently, let's go. I stood slowly, avoiding Julian's eyes. I could feel his stare burning into my soul, sharp and questioning, but I didn't dare look at him. The drive was quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet. The kind that pressed against my chest and made every thought louder. Streetlights passed in a blur as I rested my forehead against the window, my stomach twisting again. I swallowed hard, praying the nausea would calm down. Chris glanced at me. You've been quiet all night. I'm just tired, I said quickly. He nodded, but his grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. You've been saying that a lot lately. I didn't respond. After a few moments, he spoke again, his voice softer. You know, you don't have to pretend with me, Mimi. You can tell me anything. My fingers curled in my lap. I'm fine, I whispered. The car slowed as he pulled over near my apartment. Instead of turning off the engine immediately, he turned to face me. Did Julian do something? He asked carefully. My heart jumped. No, I said too fast. Julian didn't do anything. Chris studied my face, the pale skin, the way I kept swallowing, the tension in my shoulders. You don't look well, he said. Are you sure you don't want to see a doctor? I already did, I blurted out. Then froze. Chris blinked. You did? I looked away, panic flooding my chest. I mean, earlier. It's nothing serious. Chris reached out, hesitated, then gently placed his hand over mine. Mimi, whatever it is, you are facing, share it with me. I'm sure we can solve it together. Pause. I know what you are thinking, that Chris is such a gentleman, and I should end up with him. Believe me, I would love that too, but think about it. How do I tell him that I'm pregnant with Julian's child, but still want to go out with him? Play. For a moment, just a moment, I wanted to tell him everything. The pregnancy, the fear, the mistake, the truth. But then I thought of Julian, and the words died in my mouth. I'll be fine, I said quietly, pulling my hand back. I just need rest. Chris didn't push me any further. He only nodded, disappointment flickering briefly in his eyes. Okay, he said softly. But if you need me, I'm here. Always. I replied, I know. I stepped out of the car, forcing a smile that didn't feel right. Good night, Chris. Good night, Mimi. As I walked toward my apartment, my phone vibrated. A single message lit up the screen. Julian, we need to talk. The following morning I arrived at M&J. I was pale, my steps unsteady. Every instinct screamed at me to run home. I tried to steady myself at a desk, pretending to focus on my work. But Julian wasn't having it. He appeared at my side before I could even lift my coffee cup. "Mimi," he said quietly, but there was an edge to his voice that made my stomach twist, not from nausea this time, but from fear and anticipation. I looked away, trying to hide my panic. "Julian, what do you want?" I asked. He didn't move. Instead, he leaned closer, eyes locked on mine. "I thought I told you we needed to talk," he replied. "You've been avoiding me all week." "I was busy," I replied. Julian's jaw tightened. "Don't lie to me, Mimi. I know what I did in the server room was wrong. I know you were shocked, angry, maybe even scared, but why didn't you push me away properly? And now I can't stop thinking about you." I replied, You kissed me in the server room. "That's true, but I have already forgotten about it, so I hope you can do the same." Julian frowned. "Do you really hate me that much?" My throat went dry. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. Because I didn't hate him at all. And yes, part of me had wanted it too, but what was I supposed to say? I closed my eyes then replied, "Yes, I do." He continued. "Is it because you like Chris? I know how you feel about him." In that moment, among all the things that could have happened, Chris walked in. Like I said before, the universe hates me. I just kept quiet, looking straight. Chris walked to my table. "Mimi, can we talk?" he asked. As I was getting up, Julian grabbed my hand. "We are already talking," he replied. "Mimi, please don't leave." Then I pulled my hand from Julian's. I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Please just leave, Julian. I don't want to see you or have anything to do with you. Chris is the only person I like, so please just leave us alone." Tears threatened my eyes. I wanted to scream, to run, to hide, anything that would get me away from him. Julian's expression went hollow. I could feel how much I hurt him. In that moment, it's true that I wanted him to stay away, but I never meant to actually hurt him. But in the end, that's what I ended up doing.